So to get started animating in Godot, you're going to want a scene set up initially, whether that's a couple basic different CSG shapes or an actual scene established. Right here, I have a camera that's going to be our main perspective. This is just your standard camera, 3D. I have nothing special. I just renamed it to cinematic camera. And with this, to get started on this animation, we're going to need to set up a animation player. This is going to be how we do everything in terms of actually setting up a cinematic or animating anything with inside of Godot. So with this animation player, first thing we'll need to do is actually click this animation tab right here. If this window didn't pop up, you'll likely have output open. Just at the bottom of your screen, tap animation, and then up here again, animation, new, and we're going to name it something like intro. Over here on the right is going to be the actual total length of your animation. So in this case, I'm going to set it to something like, let's say 10 seconds. Now for the camera, the goal for this camera is to get it to move all the way down to the end of the hall and then pan down. And that's going to be the end of this animation. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to make sure our camera is selected. We're then going to work our way over to the transform property under node 3D for the camera. And you'll notice next to position, rotation, scale, and so forth, we have these little keys. These are going to be how you keyframe your camera's position, rotation, scale, and so forth. So in this animation, I'm going to want to first keyframe its position. And let's say the 5 or so second mark, I want this camera to be here. Let me just scroll up so you can kind of see that just a little bit better. And we'll set a new position keyframe. So already, if I go to the start, we have the camera panning forward. So I don't actually want my camera phasing through the door. Right now, it'll just phase through the material itself or the mesh itself with nothing stopping it. There is no collision, and I wouldn't want there to be collision with the camera anyways. So I'm going to want to animate this door. So with this specific mesh I have, if I open it up, you'll notice it's broken down into 3 parts. So I have the doorway itself, the actual door, and its door handle. So I have access to 3 different meshes that I can then edit from here. That may not be the case for you if this is a mesh you created yourself, if you bought this mesh from somebody else, and it might just be one mesh together. An example of that could be one of these walls that I have. So if I were to click this wall, it's just a singular mesh. There's no other meshes to actually edit with this. So if you have access to a mesh with multiple parts in it, you can go over to it. So for example, it's door painted here. I'm going to right click and you'll see editable children as a toggle. So I'm going to toggle that on, and you'll now see that I can now click specifically the whole entire thing itself, the parent mesh. I have access to the door mesh, and I have access to the handle mesh. So with the mesh broken down, I'm going to want this door to actually open. So by selecting the door mesh itself, I'm going to make my way over to the node 3D section of this mesh under transform, and I'm going to keyframe its rotation. Then let's move forward, let's say to the 7 or so second mark, and I'm going to then open this door. Right about there looks fine. And then keyframe its rotation again. So now we actually have a door opening animation for it. And to make this feel like a tad more lively, I'm going to take the actual handle itself, get a keyframe its rotation. I'm then going to take it, let's say, to the 6 second mark. I'm going to have the handle turn, keyframe that, and then at the 7 second mark, I'm just going to reset its rotation back to 0. Keyframe that. And now we have a door opening and the handle itself opening as well too. So now with the door open and that animation finished, I'm going to actually want to push the camera through the doorway. So I'd say about the 8 or so second mark, I'm going to have this camera go forward a couple steps. I think there should be fine. Going to keyframe its position. I also want this camera to look down this hallway. So let's say 7 seconds. We're going to now start tracking its rotation. So create a rotation keyframe. Bring it to about 8 seconds, and I'm going to rotate this camera down. Create a rotation keyframe. So now our camera is pivoting and looking down the hallway. And with that, we actually have a pretty solid intro. You can see it right there at the top right-hand corner. Camera makes its way through, door opens, and camera pans down. To get this feeling a little bit more lively, we're going to change our interpolation mode from linear to cubic. I'm going to do that for all 3 of these, or all 4 of these. Now when I let this play, it's going to play out just a little bit more smoothly. Now that we have the animation set, I want to make the scene just a little bit more lively. So under the node 3D, I'm going to create an additional node 3D, and I'm going to name this sound. This is completely optional to do this portion, but I want to add a sound effect to this door when it opens that plays during the animation. I want it to be timed with it. The creation of the node 3D is optional, but it helps you organize things, kind of like a folder structure. And under this, I'm going to create audio stream player 3D. So with this, I already have a sound effect I want to use for my doors opening. So with my sound now inserted for the door opening, what I'll do here is I'll find the section where the door begins to open about the 5-second mark. I am going to create a keyframe for the sound for playing. So create, and you're going to see this little gray box if you select that. So right now the value for our sound to start playing is currently set to false. So if we set this to true, then we'll actually have access to our sound here, and it will play in the animation itself. If you happen to scroll around quite a bit in your animation player, the sounds will like to loop a lot. If you want to disable that while you're editing or while you're trying to set up your animations, just uncheck this box and you won't hear them while you're working. Otherwise, if you're moving your things back and forth, they'll kick in every now and again. So the final thing we'll need to do before everything is set and done is currently the animation actually won't play if we run the project. See that the camera is just stuck still. None of the doors are open. The door isn't opening. No sounds playing. I have an ambient sound coming from that, but that's just playing because it's set to autoplay. So what we'll need to do is for the root node, we're going to create a script for it. So I am going to just quick load because I do have a script pre-established that is super simple. So with this script, it's incredibly simple, and it's just accomplishing the one goal of playing this animation at game start. How this works is we are first referencing our animation player. So what you're going to want to do is select your animation player, so left click and hold. You're going to drag, and instead of just dropping, what you're going to want to do is hold control, and that will create a reference to your animation player up here. From then, I am creating a ready function. This is a function that just runs on game start. I believe it runs on the first frame. So with that, we're just creating a ready function, and we're referencing our animation player, telling it to play, and then telling it to play intro. So whatever you named your animation, cutscene, whatever, just put that in there. It should autofill, but in case it doesn't, just type it verbatim, so make sure any capitalization is all correct. And with that, now if we click run, our animation will play. And there we go. There's our animation. You can obviously go through, tune things up to make them look just a little bit better, add more sound effects, similar to how I did here with it. Same style of animation, just made it a little bit smoother, added a couple additional sound effects, a little more ambience to the actual scene itself. If you have any further questions, just feel free to reach out in the comments. I'll try to get back to you. I'm no professional or expert when it comes down to this, but I will do my best to help you. And with that, have a good day.